Welcome to this week's episode of Technology in Your Industry. Once again, my name is Aaron Brennan. I am the Director of Marketing here at VIPAAR, and my guest today is David Holden of MSI Defense Solutions. David, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Aaron?
I'm good. It's a little warm here in Birmingham, but everyone else tells me that it's nice, but I'll survive. Tell me a little bit about you and your industry and what your company does.
So MSI Defense Solution, we create suspension solution, engineered products, and we actually manufacture a vehicle for Special Operations Forces, which Boeing is our partner on. We're the integration manager and the integrating partner on the vehicle. So if you go downstairs in our facility, you'll see vehicles going together, weldments, fabrication, and then another part of our factory you'll see suspension pieces being built, and you'll see very large shock absorbers for big military trucks or tracked vehicles and amphibious vehicles going on. So we've got quite a diversified business under MSI, and then we have a commercial entity called JRI, which does high-end road cars, aftermarkets, hot rods, motocross, Harley-Davidson, sport bikes, NASCAR, all sorts of things in the suspension world. So we get our hands in a lot of different projects. That's awesome. So you're a big car guy then? Yeah, so I like technology and mechanical things and putting my hands on things, and if you can give me the choice between a spreadsheet that's got to have some numbers run in it and figure out margin, or getting down there and doing some things on the engineering side, I'll take the engineering side every day. I don't blame you at all. Coming from the tech guy that I am. So tell me a little bit about the technology that you guys use on an everyday, whether it's the machines that you use, software that you're using. Sure. Give me a little bit of insight there. So we'll depending on what product we're talking about, we could have a shock absorber that's electronically controlled. If you go on YouTube and you search JRI shocks JRIDE, J-R-I-D-E, you'll see a semi-active suspension system that you can actually control with a smartphone. You can adjust the suspension on the fly. So if you have a vehicle, a Polaris Razor, for example, you can go out on the web and see this video. It's fantastic, actually, because you can go and adjust that from I'm driving my wife through the woods soft and supple setting to I'm racing setting to I'm on the dune setting, and you can save all those things and you can do it GPS based. So we're really into technology and smartphone things and those kind of applications, and then we'll take that same technology and go from a military space, and we'll make it so that the operators can select it from a dashboard, or it might be connected to a system where they have a central tire inflation system that knows if they're on sand, mud and snow, or pavement, it automatically inflates and deflates the tires. Our system can also correlate to that system and automatically change the suspension to those conditions. So those are a couple of the things from a military vehicle suspension side. But then if we're out testing a vehicle, like we've done vehicle development, you'll have a vehicle that's out running at a proving grounds, and they could be in a far-flung location, Nevada, California, Arizona, Aberdeen, Maryland, Florida, Minnesota, Seattle, Washington, and some places overseas. So we get a lot of diversity in our technology that we touch every day and the things that we apply, and kind of connectivity with the customers depending on what they do and where they are in the world. So that's crazy. So you can do some of this from a mobile phone. We can, yeah. So the really cool thing is to be able to drive around. I love doing this demo. People come to our facility and they want to see it. We have a vehicle that you can drive around, and I'll drive, and they can change it while we're driving, and they can say, wow, I just felt that manhole cover that I didn't feel when we went out, and I felt that freeze crack or that expansion crack, or okay, let's hit some curbs and hit some bumps, and they're doing this all on the fly, and it doesn't cost crazy, and it actually gives them a really big range of motion of adjustment, so that the vehicle is really well done. So they have all optimal driving conditions at all times. And if you extrapolate this out to a production car mentality, you could have it based on a GPS setting. So if you're on the freeway, you know what that is, or just like they have airbag sensors in seats to know where passengers are. If you have somebody in the passenger seat, you can figure out if that's your wife or your kid or whatever, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to be in the soft and supple setting for comfort, and I'm going to go out and do some desert canyon kind of driving on a Saturday morning and have a more aggressive profile. So it's really, really cool technology. We think it's going to be the next big thing.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool. So with what we just talked about being mobile, do you see mobile as sort of a big area of technology that your industry is going into?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a challenge with mobile and soldiers because of our two businesses. Soldiers don't want anything that broadcasts a signal or gives up their location, so they definitely still want discrete buttons and have the technology to do that. But if you can encrypt that and be wireless, they prefer that, yes, for sure. But from a commercial standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, being able to do those things from your wireless device is really a fantastic leap forward. And so you're no longer constrained by hardware. You can make all these things do the things you want and update appropriately. And so we really think that mobile platforms are going to be a really big thing for this industry. I mean, obviously they're big for many other industries, but you wouldn't think that suspension adjustment would be one of the things that anybody would be focusing on. Yet we've made great gains there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I never would have thought suspension with a mobile device. That's brand new to me, and it sounds absolutely fascinating. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube has several videos on it, and it's just J-Ride, so it's under our JRI Shocks brand, J-Ride, and it's really cool. There's some really great demos on there.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, in your industry, where would you see the next biggest need for technology? And what, we're talking about mobile now. Using mobile, where would you see sort of that next leap in technology? And that can be from the manufacturing side or from, that sort of consumer side that you would bring in.
Right. So I think the next biggest thing is mobile with measuring and aggregating data and creating metrics for what I'm doing. So just like there are apps that can tell you the traffic patterns based on your cell phone, and we can have a radar speed trap locator with a smartphone app. If I have data attached to wearable devices, whether it's a technology for a soldier or whether it's technology for a commercial application, if I can aggregate that data and come up with good solutions there, I think that's going to be a big thing. Once you've got access to the data, and then you can start processing down and filtering down and searching for things, it becomes a really powerful tool to identify ways to improve performance of a person, whether you're talking about a soldier, whether you can improve their training, whether I can improve the performance of those folks that might be on the lower 50% of the scale. So let's just say that I'm looking at a football player and I have a mobile device that can track their movements, and some teams are already using this for basketball. They wear GPS and they set up a GPS system in an arena, and they'll track how fast or how quickly a player will move off the ball or something like that. We'll do that to people and soldiers. Then you have all this data that you can apply metrics to. I think that's going to be the next big thing is aggregating the data and doing something intelligent with it.
Wow, very interesting. So one of the big things that I've sort of run into over my 10-ish years in the technology industry is there's always some people that are a bit apprehensive, and some industries that are way more apprehensive about embracing technology and sort of bringing it into their realm.
Right.
How do you feel that people in your industry are about embracing technology, and what do you think some of the fears are around that?
So I think I'll speak from a military perspective first. I've seen quite a bit of change in the technologies that have been employed by, let's say, special operators and some of the folks that are on the leading edge of that area. They're embracing technology because they're limited budgets. They're smaller force size and smaller component than like a big Army or a big Marine Corps might be. And so they have no choice but to use technology to make their setup and their solution more efficient. Mm-hmm. Bigger services are just starting to learn. I would say that the Marine Corps is probably the next one that's adapting and really growing at this, doing things like condition-based maintenance and looking at those things. Now the Army is coming along strong. They're investing in technology and they're doing it in the right way, and they're making sure that they can make sure that vehicles are going to run efficiently. They're going to get the right maintenance, because a vehicle that sits and runs its engine and cooling pack to run a power station, for example, might not need the same service as a vehicle that's run over rough terrain. Yet X number of hours on the engines could be equal, and so they might see the same level of service. So trying to do that condition-based maintenance, data aggregation, again, is going to be important. So I think the military, because of budgets and things like that, are pushing towards adopting technology quickly. And out in the commercial space, there's always that upper echelon of folks that are going to adopt technology earlier because they're going to see an advantage, they're going to see a potential benefit to them. Be a big chunk of folks that probably adopt it thereafter. There'll be folks, and I was guilty of this, frankly, of being a late adopter of I love my BlackBerry because I could crush some guys on typing. I was the fastest messaging guy. I had the fastest hands in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And, but obviously they were overtaken, and so reluctantly I've got a smartphone that does all this stuff, and I can swipe and do that. So
Android or iPhone?
It's an Android phone, yeah.
Yeah.
But I walk around with an iPad mini and an iPad too, so I'm an equal smartphone, iOS, or operating system user. So I play everybody the same, right? So
that's good. That's really good. You know, it's great to be cross-platform knowledgeable.
Right.
The best thing. You know, in my time at Google, I always had a smartphone, two smartphones. I always had an Android and an iPhone, and it was great being able to switch back and forth between the two of them. Know how the functionality worked between them. It was really great and fascinating to watch them grow together.
It's like speaking two languages, really. I was listening to someone talk about how text messaging and that's almost like a second language, and cognitive skills and people who can text and speak English are comparable to those who can speak English and another language, because it is like another language. And so knowing those two OSs is really a good thing.
Yeah.
And throw in your regular, your desktop if you've got a Windows PC-based desktop as well. And I can go back and do some DOS work as well. That's going to date me though, but I know I'm pretty good at DOS as well. So.
Hey, look, I'll raise my hand right now. I remember those days of DOS. /.
They are dir/all/.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
There's no value in it, but I can do it.
I think I just dated myself as well, so you weren't the only one. Real quick, where did you sort of see the momentum of technology sort of take over for your industry? I know my dad always says like the momentum for technology always changed for him when he all of a sudden noticed that he had to get a cell phone for his truck when he had his own company, and he was like, oh, I have to have a cell phone because people need to be able to talk to me. And so all of a sudden that was that technology point where in his industry he realized technology is running, and it's running fast. So where was that for you?
Back when I was in racing, so I actually from 1996 until 2008 I was a motorsports engineer for several NASCAR teams. But from 2006 to 2008 I was doing both the racing side of things and also military things. So, but just keeping up with a smartphone, like a Palm. I think I had a Trio and a couple other things. So rather than having a Nokia that you would hit 3 times and text some really short SMSs on, you actually had something that you could send some real messages on. So that was probably for me was a critical inflection point, knowing that you could be connected a lot more, you could get a lot more done and be more efficient. So gone were the days where I would call from my desk to somebody seated at another desk who would run out onto the shop floor and do something. I could send prints at night. I could approve blueprints at night. I could do a lot of things in a lot of different time zones. And to me, that was probably for me was the biggest thing. And that was 2002, 3, 4 time frame.
Yep.
And even though it was really not really as well developed as we think everything is now, that was a big step up from a Nokia smartphone. I mean, everything was going smaller. How small can you get the smartphone and still text and SMS out of the keys? But now it was, I have a full QWERTY keyboard, and I can send messages, and I can do all these things and be connected, almost as if I'm in the office while I'm 3 time zones away.
Yep.
And I'd say that was probably, for me, so call it 10 or 12 years ago, was really a big deal.
So I have to ask, have you noticed recently that cell phones are starting to get bigger again?
Yeah, they're starting to get really big.
Yeah. I mean, you can have a phone that's really more of a tablet. I've totally found that fascinating over the last couple of years. How cell phone makers for such a long time were trying to make it smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden they're bigger screens. I think it has to do more with the content that's being produced for mobiles.
Yes.
Mobile devices. I think that's just a huge thing. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I mean, if I can see more on my device, I can do more on my device. So to me, bringing my desktop with me and that desktop experience on a bigger and bigger screen, I think that's probably what what the driving force is. Now, I think it's a practical limit is, does that phablet that I'm holding up beside my head fit my head, and can I see the rest of the world around me? I mean, that's kind of the size. But you're talking iPad minis and Galaxy Tabs and things like that are really large. The Galaxy Note 3 with an OtterBox around it, because you need something to protect it. That's a big device in your hand, and that's a hefty piece of gear.
Yeah, it certainly is.
But I agree with you. I think the content that's being able to be generated and delivered, and delivered over, the typical connections that we've generally had. I mean, there's no major advances that have been apparent to the users. I'm sure for a telecom guy behind the scenes, there's a lot of investment, but from a user standpoint, they just go along, and it was 3G and now it's 4G LTE, and so really the networks have allowed or enabled a lot more data to be delivered to a device, and now the devices have adapted to be able to execute that and do more with the data that's delivered. So I think it's really capturing that experience, again, moving you away from your desk out to an area where you might be more efficient if you're talking about work, or you might enjoy something more if you're out watching, streaming Netflix or something like that to your phone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree with you there. So you've used the VIPAAR technology.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit what you've used the VIPAAR technology for, how you've reached into different screens and used it to communicate.
So I said that we had proving grounds in Nevada that we go to, in Seattle and Arizona and Aberdeen, Maryland, and all kinds of places, even overseas. What's really hard is when we'll send a product out, we generally work with the customer to make sure that the experience is a good one, that they have really good understanding of what the product is. But sometimes we'll have an experience where the customer just doesn't get it. They're not having a good experience, and they're really struggling to make something that we send out work. And whether it's a smartphone-enabled or button-enabled suspension component, whether it's a whole vehicle that they can't get through a test profile, we need to be there to support them as a company, and they're our customer. Well, if I had to jump through the hoops to get to some of these remote locations, sometimes the travel is more than a day solid travel to get there. And oftentimes when we get there, it's a misunderstanding on the user's part. There might be something simple like it's put in backwards, installed on the vehicle backwards. They might have a left and a right flip-flop, so they have the right on the left. And so you just put that around, and there's no more interference issues. Mm-hmm. And so really going out there and sending a tech to every location like that is really hard. And so what we've done is we'll send out an iPad or an iPad mini with a new setup. And some places we have one that just stays there. And then the folks pull it out of the cabinet, and they hold it up in front of them, and they say, look, we're seeing this. What do you see? And we can reach our hand into the screen, and we can point to this. Hey, you need to flip that around. The mounting is wrong. Show me what the failure looks like. Can we ride down the course with you and see what you're saying? And we've really been able to do those things effectively and efficiently so that I don't have to send somebody out there. Maybe I have to do it eventually, but I can make the decision based on information, not just someone who's not familiar with the product, a new product in particular, and what they're supposed to be seeing or what they've seen. And so really it's better data. I mean, it's pictures worth 1,000 words, and a plane ticket that you don't have to buy because somebody's put something on backwards is really worth a lot, because then that tech is in the shop again 15 or 20 minutes later when they hang up from the call, and they're back at work. They're not scrambling home to get a bag to fly to the airport to find something is installed backwards. That's
fantastic. So you're really finding that ability to reach into the screen extremely helpful for you guys to be more efficient in working, right?
Right. So when we have, another example was we had an engine noise that we couldn't diagnose. So we had video and audio to go along with it, and we could direct them around and just, let us hear this. Let us hear this noise that you're seeing. Mm-hmm. And it turns out there was a sensor issue that wasn't plugged in, and so the engine controller was saying, hey, I don't get the incoming air temperature sensor data. Therefore, my best, safest for the engine behavior is to assume the worst case conditions, and I'm injecting all this fuel to make the engine, it sounded like a rattly diesel engine. Yeah. But once we found that plug that in, boom, straight away, and it's fixed. And the sensors were just unplugged because the mechanic was trying to do some service and forgot to plug one in. So really connecting a lot of those simple things has been a huge help.
That's awesome. That's really great for us to hear. I mean, we really want to hear things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to brag a little bit. I recently heard you won an award. Can you tell us a little bit about the award you got?
Yeah, so we won the Boeing Supplier of the Year for 2013. And the award that we got, they have awards every year, and you've got a hydraulic supplier, a machining supplier, and various subcomponent areas. We won an overarching award for changing the way that Boeing does business, for doing something that is new and innovative and meeting customer targets for performance and cost. And really, vehicles are out of the swim lane of Boeing. You know, everyone knows them from helicopters and aircraft. That's what they do. Ground vehicles with rubber tires that do military things, that's somebody else's business.
Right.
But really what we did was we developed a vehicle in the course of a year to be deployed for Special Operations Forces, to be carried in a V-22 aircraft and used for a variety of missions. And we got the vehicle certified, durability tested, approved by the customer, and bought first articles and fielded in less than a year. And that was a really fantastic award and achievement for us. It was a comment on how great our folks are here internally, and also how great our partners are, because we can't do it without the folks that supply our parts, that help us with the services that we get, and all the things that we do. And so frankly, you know, we looked at it as, it wasn't just our award, it wasn't just one individual or a group of individuals at our address physically here that did this job, but it was all of our vendor partners, and we looked at that as a really singular achievement for us. You know, Boeing technically has built wheeled vehicles before. It just happened in like 1969, and they left it on the moon. So the lunar lander was built by Boeing. That was their first one.
No idea. I literally.
Their second vehicle is called the Phantom Badger CSV. So again, if you go out there and you search that, you'll come up with all kinds of different articles on the vehicle. But it's a fantastic little vehicle, and we call it the little truck that can, because you can make it do whatever you want it to do for the soldier, and they appreciate it and they love it. So. But it was a fantastic award, great to be recognized. They had a big bash in Chicago, and we got a big award, and it sits down in our lobby, and it's really one of our biggest achievements, because you're helping. I've been part of championship-winning racing teams, and we've won races in a lot of places and been in victory lane. But when you're really doing that, and you're doing something for the national defense and helping our soldiers and Marines, that's a fantastic feeling too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations, really.
Yeah, thanks. And you guys are part of that. So we don't do all this and proving grounds work and all that stuff in a year unless we can do it faster and better. So you guys are part of that. So thanks.
Well, thank you. And again, congratulations. And I'm really happy to hear what you're doing for our service members. So that's really great. I asked this to everybody that's joined me so far. With my background in technology and working at Google and Demandforce and some other very large companies. I love technology. I always say my favorite technology was the iPhone when I got my first iPhone.
Okay.
What is your favorite technology? It can be software, hardware, it could be anything.
It can be anything?
Anything.
Anything. So I would say that my latest favorite technology has to be biometrics as it relates to human performance and medical management and measuring. We have some things that we've done here for measuring performance of humans in terms of knees and ankles and so on and so forth, and in a way of helping our soldiers who jump out of airplanes, but also helping some amputees. And so there's a neat product that we've got. But the data that you can pull off of these things, I had a really great meeting today, earlier today, with a fellow who's in the same space but doing different products, and the data that you can gather and aggregate and put together and make decisions from on a human, whether it's a health insurance decision, does this person's knee in an osteoarthritis case need to be repaired, replaced, what can we do, how's their recovery coming, all of those choices can be made with technology. And I think the capability of recording all those things and all those measures and really defining what those measures are limited only by the humans that are programming those measures. So as we become more clever at using the information that's available to us, it's the same information, but how do we put it together with with the other factors that might be there. What is the person's hobby? What were they doing? What kind of activities do they do day to day? And do their injuries or recoveries get affected by what they do, or certain nuances about their lives? So to me, being able to gather large amounts of data and process the data and ask good questions and get good answers out of it is probably the most exciting thing now, because that technology is available, as we talked earlier. You know, your smartphone can do it. You can have your hip-mounted phone be your data logger for all your devices and connect wirelessly. With our suspension product, it's Bluetooth LE. We did all that in-house, but really the limitations for any of those connectivities are unlimited, and we really want to try and aggregate that data. So I would say that, you know, everybody talks about big data, but being able to do that to improve human performance, whether it's an athletic situation or recovery, or reduce monetary burden on insurance systems and healthcare systems, I think those are all going to be important. And being able to do that now with the computing power that we have every day available to us at our fingertips, I think is pretty exciting.
That's awesome. That's a great one. No one's talked about that one too much yet. David, thanks for joining us. If people want to reach you, how do they find out more information?
You can just go to our website, msidefense.com. You'll find it's pretty sparsely populated because of the nature of the work that we do. jrishocks.com is the other one. That's our commercial business. Much better populated, much more product interaction. We do some weekly hangout things like this, and there's a Facebook page for JRI to follow. But our numbers are all there. You can reach us, and my email address is open to everybody there. So it's just dholden@msidefense.com, and it's easy to reach me. But we can talk about whatever they'd like to talk about, whether it's our use of VIPAAR or any of the things we talked about here, or frankly anything else. I'm always good for a technology segue from looking at a spreadsheet and trying to determine a margin. I'm all for an engineering story. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for joining us this week. It's really been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to find out more information about VIPAAR, you can visit us at www.vipaar.com. And also, we released a brand new beta app this week called Lime. We're all really excited about it here at VIPAAR. Go to our website, limeapp.me, and check out the video, or go to our VIPAAR page on YouTube and check out the videos. And everybody sign up for our beta. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Adios.